US correspondent Amelia Adams is on the ground there. Amelia, can you just give us a sense of what's going on right now as we wait for Donald Trump to begin his press conference?
Yeah, it's incredible timing that just meters away in the Rose Garden, the President's finally about to give us some information about escalating the federal response to this crisis. And as we wait for that, things have really escalated. What you're seeing here is rows of military police that have moved up to the barricade. Because we're half an hour from curfew, Ali, this is about the time, well, curfew was 11 p.m. last night, so about half an hour before curfew. Ooh. They're trying to move all of the protesters here out of the way. So we have police, as you can see, heavily armed, and they're just moving towards us, The protesters, that's yes. The protesters are starting to throw water bottles and other projectiles. So really, another repeat of what we saw yesterday. It's happening quite a lot earlier in this area because, as I said, they want to get all of these thousands of protesters out of this area and home before night falls. The point of that is not to have a repeat of those scenes we saw after dark, but as you can see, that's already threatening to happen. And the concern is, okay, so they're actually pulling protesters in from about a block either side of the White House, trying to contain the area, which is inevitably going to lead to just a tinderbox here outside Lafayette Park. What we know is that this is no longer about law enforcement for the Capitol. This is now a security... I hear you. I am giving that message. I just want to pass on some messages from the protesters as well, because they are very, very peaceful. Many of them, I know we're seeing escalating tensions here. I know we're seeing a lot of violence, and we're probably going to see a lot more. And we need to report that because it's an important part of the story. But we also need to tell you that a lot of these people don't want to see the violence. These peaceful protests, are being hijacked by people who are trying to make trouble. We're good. All right, and they're chanting now. As you can hear, George Floyd. That is the essence of this message, and that is what has led to all this. And we are shortly going to hear from the President. We understand 1,200 National Guard from 5 states across America have now been deployed here to the Capitol to secure Washington, D.C. after the scenes of anarchy on the streets here last night.
Amelia, this is not far, as you say, from where the President is due to give a speech. Is there a sense of trying to control the situation before he comes out? And how close can they get to the White House? Give us an idea on the parameters of the security operation. Gee whiz, it's the... Whoa.
Yeah, all right. So police have just charged the protesters who don't want to be moved on. You're right. They do not want to be moved on. They do not want to be pushed back. But with curfew approaching, they need to clear the area. And you can see, going that way, excuse me, sir. You can see how serious, you're right, how serious the police are and the response of the protesters. They've got their arms up, a lot of them. That's really important to point out here. They've got their arms up, a lot of them being very peaceful. Some of them kneeling, asking for authorities to listen to them, and they're saying, put down your weapons. Obviously, that is not going to happen here because this is a major security situation which is unfolding. All as we wait for Donald Trump to announce what we understand will be a serious escalation in the federal response to this crisis.
Amelia, we've heard throughout the morning protesters saying one of their criticisms of police is that they're not de-escalating the situation. Just based on where you are now, you say protesters have their hands up. Just give us a sense of the police response of what you can see.
It's really hard, Ali, because, look, there's been some really lovely moments in Washington, D.C. yesterday and this morning that I've witnessed, although that's probably hard to believe right now, where some officers have put down their shields and they have knelt with the protesters. They're aiming at you. But right now, obviously their job as security is to clear this whole area opposite the White House. So they're going to use force, and the issue there is, of course, this whole movement, this whole protest is about police brutality and the treatment that African Americans in this country have suffered at the hands of white authorities for hundreds and hundreds of years. So we're seeing this play out in front of us, this absolute struggle between people who want to be heard and want to say, let's do this peacefully, stand with us and show us that you hear us and have a dialogue with us. But at the same time, because there is such a dangerous element here, and there are people who are here to riot and to loot and to destroy the city, and that is happening right across the states. Because of those people, the police have to retaliate, and they have to move everyone out, and we're going to move with them. You're right.
Okay, we just saw some of those stun grenades. What it looked like, Amelia, where you are right now. I mean, it's got to be you're with the crowd, so it's not an easy situation for you by any means, is it?
It's not, and look, we're very aware as well that a lot of media crews have been attacked right across the states in the course of the past week. A lot of people feel that media aren't sending the right message and aren't hearing their voices. So, you know, we're very conscious not to dramatize this situation and talk to people who are marching peacefully on the periphery as well. But as you can see right now, it is a very dramatic situation. It is very tense, and it's potentially very dangerous. And the president addressing the nation from the Rose Garden, it's worth noting as well that usually very big announcements, triumphs, addresses would be made from the Oval Office. So he's chosen the Rose Garden this afternoon. And I know that often in the past when he's been holding those briefings, press conferences in the Rose Garden, you can hear if there are protests outside. So he will absolutely be able to hear what's going on here. There's no doubt about it.
So those sounds, Amelia, is that tear gas going off behind you?
Yeah, so we've got flashbangs and stun guns, and then, yeah, that's exactly right. So basically the police line, as you can see, has moved in this sort of making a square really in the front of Lafayette Park there outside the White House. There's now mounted police as well, so they're up on horseback pushing everyone back. And when the protesters refuse to move, that's when you're hearing those That's when you're hearing the tear gas canisters being. Oh,
well, this is basically about
fired, and it's not nice.
This is about securing the president, isn't it, Amelia? This is why they're moving as they are right now.
Yeah, I mean, and also it is. I mean, he's due to, as I said, step out into the Rose Garden any minute now. But it is also because of curfew, so the timing's kind of coincided for him to call that briefing half an hour before curfew kicks in, which is normally when police would be doing this anyway. This is what they were doing half an hour before curfew yesterday, but that was at 10:30 at night. That you saw this exact situation unfolding, but there were, by then I think probably fewer people, because all of the peaceful protesters and the families had gone home when they were asked to after the peaceful rally. But those people are all still here. You know, it's broad daylight. They've only just finished the march, and we've been walking alongside them. And as I said earlier, there were some lovely moments of solidarity with the authorities along the march today. Some officers did kneel with them, others refused. They went to the Capitol building, which was a really nice moment of symbolism, because of course it's the people who work, watch out, the people who work in that building that are running this country, and this is the system that all of these people say is broken, and it is. All right, we're moving back.
Yeah, it looks like they're
probably.
It's heavy, Amelia. It's heavy. Just keep moving, Amelia. Look, it's obviously part of the police coordination here. They'll drop the tear gas. It disperses the crowd. It allows the police then to move the crowd back further through that tear gas. Just look at those scenes right now. I mean, that is just mayhem again on the streets of Washington, D.C. as they try and move the parameters away from the White House as the president will attempt to give a speech soon. No doubt he won't be doing that unless that perimeter is secure. We know if anyone's ever been to Washington, D.C., you know the security around that area is tight at the best of times. However, on a day like today, there's a lot of police reinforcements in there, and Amelia is again in the thick of it. That's someone who's picked up some tear gas and thrown it back. I mean, this is the kind of thing that's only going to wind the crowds up more, but it's also going to make the police more intent on driving those crowds back and trying to bring about a level of calm around Washington, D.C., but it is not, as you can see. It is just heightened tensions even further. Amelia, you back with us?
Yeah, I am, and it's worth noting as well, one of the was that military police that actually just gave us crew and security the heads up and said, we're going to throw this, get out of the way. So they've hurled that, as you saw, at protesters and people just picking it up and throwing it right back. And I think at this stage we need to start calling these people rioters, because this is descending very quickly into a riot. And the peaceful people who were here chanting in peace, many of them have gone, many of them haven't. And the issue is now, of course, those are the people saying, well, look at the police throwing tear gas at us. Look at the brutality. Look at the authorities doing exactly what we're complaining about. Equally, the authorities need to do their job, and they need to clear the streets so that we don't have a repeat of what we saw last night. So it's a very, very difficult balance. And what you're now seeing is people kneeling on the streets outside the White House, and they're chanting, drop a knee for George Floyd, of course. And the riot police opposite them at this stage, no one is kneeling.
Listen. They gonna bring the fucking military.
I mean, that's the delicate balance that
moving around
that is taking place here, Amelia, isn't it? You know, you've got those peaceful protesters that we're just looking at there who've gone down on one knee. But are you seeing a different element start to move in now? You were talking before that there have been families there throughout the day. They've started to clear out. Those people behind you, do you feel it's a different element that has now moved in?
Look, it absolutely is, and this is what we saw last night as well, where you had so many people come, and such a range. You know, I've seen little children and older men and women, white Americans, black Americans, college students, a real range of voices here, all wanting to come together and call for change to a system that is very, very oppressive and that clearly isn't working. Now that things have turned a little bit tense, to say the least, a lot of those people will have left. You know, I can still see some of them because it's still early. That's the thing. You expect it if curfew's later that they'll head home before dark. But right up there on the line, Ali, you're absolutely right. I mean, these are sort of the hardcore people that will not leave under any circumstances. Now the crowd is chanting, "Don't shoot, don't shoot," because they can see the military police, their canisters ready, and they're pushing back with the batons. So we're now, we're we're half a block back from the White House, so they are moving the crowd very slowly. But then if you look around this way, just have a look, hands up in the air. And they are not ready to leave this protest, that is for sure.